Alright, I saw this on the internet today, and this is exactly shows what I have been trying to find. And this is what I am going to say is tendon. And this is tendon. This layer here is a heavily invested blood dense layer that the tendon invests into, and then above that would have been the muscle fiber. This stalk would run down to a giant plagioclase ball that's underneath this structure in the ground. And my contention is that these were the giants that died during the flood. Now, we think of giants as 18, 20 feet tall. No, they were miles tall. And Enoch says this. And they, and these are creatures, no question about it, absolutely no question. This was a creature. And this entrance here, I believe, is the layer that goes between tendons. Now, there's a layer in between tendons, and they have what they call a synovial sheath around the bundles of tendons, which will deteriorate. They also have what's called small leucine-rich proteins, I believe, which is a blood-rich layer that is in between here, that would go in between these parts of the tendon, because they slide back and forth in bundles. So these things slide around, and there's a break here, and these things slide around. Now, my contention also is that this is some form of a heel, Achilles tendon, and that the ball being deep in the ground, and the Achilles tendon bundles coming up, and there is multiple bundles coming up. Now, I don't fully understand the complexity of the Achilles heel, but I know there are multiple bundles, which you can see. And also, my contention is that these creatures were drowned standing up. I know it sounds crazy, they just didn't fall over and drown, but they stood up until they were stuck in the mud. And then they drowned. And then over the course of time, the fleshy stuff, which it starts at the leg and goes up, the fleshy stuff would have fallen apart and the guy fell over. And this is in Australia, and it's all over the place. It's all over the United States, in the Midwest, the buttes and all that stuff. Those are tendinenthesis points. Those are not just structures that grew out of the ground like that, those spires all over the place. No. They come down from the top in a blood-rich, mineralized, fibrous material. That's your muscles. Then they hit this stuff here, which is a blood-rich, heavily blood-invested, gooey area. I'm going to call it the tendon goo. And that glues the muscle to the tendon. I mean, I know that. It sounds crazy, but where do you see it on the ones that I have fossilized here? And they are identical. There is no difference. And I'll show you that. And these are all over the world. This is not just this one place. I'm not even sure where this is. I'm going to try to find out where it is and speak to that. But this is what I'm saying. This in this area would have been synovial sheathing, which surrounded these bundles and created the separation and also allowed for the muscles and the fibers to move around. And I'm going to show you that in modern day muscles. Alright, this is ultra cool, and you should watch this video. It's called Strolling Under the Skin. It's on YouTube, and it's by Ukyortho, and it is by Dr. Jean-Claude Gumberte. And you should see this. And I'm not trying to steal her work here. What I'm trying to do is show that the things that I'm talking about these tendons are true. And this is how it works. And I'm going to show you clips here and there of what she's saying. And here it is. Alright, so here we go.
It is the car vessel, whose pump is slowly receding as the pipe extends to its maximum.
This is a tendon moving through the Yeah.
Finally, Vessel 3 has overtaken Vessel 2 and has closed on Vessel 1, which itself has receded from Vessel
These
2.
are the fibers that I'm
So
talking
several forms
about
of
that
speed
we
and
just
progression
saw.
seem to exist in homogeneous living matter. Due to the influence of reductionist linear thinking,
Now
the
let
only
me
rational
go to a
explanation
different
used to
place
be
here. Okay, I'd like to say a special thanks to this fellow here, and he's going to talk about here, and he has a Facebook page, and he did an exceptional job on his Achilles tendon. So I'm going to go to the section that relates to what I need to show you. I'm not trying to steal anybody's video. It's under it's called Anatomy Physiotherapy is the presenter of this video, and it's the Achilles tendon part 1 anatomy. Now, at 4:20 out here, right here. Now, here's what I want to show you. This is an Achilles tendon of a human being, and it is removed, obviously, and it is. You see what you have here is this big large ball at the end. That's what I call the plagioclase tendon emplacement and emphasis point in the rest of the body. In the Achilles tendon, a little bit different because this straps around a lump of bone. It's a tuberosity, they call it, of the foot, and the straps come up the leg and then they go underneath, I believe, around in the bottom. But this, you can see there are all these straps here, and look at the striations, and look at the strapping features in here. These linear straps. Now, this is really important. This is the main thing I want you to see here, because there's a point at which they leave the ball and they transition from the very, very spiky plagioclase material that's inside the ball. And I'm sorry, you need to see this. It's inside the ball. There's a very spiky plagioclase material, and then it's covered by red, slurpy, mushy stuff, so that those spikes don't cut you up. Really, I think that's the way it is. No, they're like rubber around it so that it stays in your bone and so forth, but it doesn't cut you up. Now, this is what I want you to pay attention to, because this is what the structure of 67P is, and I'm going to show you that right now. This is Comet 67P. Now, that is that same structure. This is the ball at the bottom, and these are where that stalk comes off, and it's more bundled together. This guy had it all separated out. This one's, but one is broken off right here. Now, I'm going to see if I can play this into a place where it shows it very clearly. Hold on a second. All right, what I want you to look at is, I showed you the other thing. That's the ball at the bottom. This comes up this way, and eventually it would reach red meat up here, but it's broken off there. These are the straps, and you look at them closely. There's a bundle that's broken off here, and I'll show you some other features in a second. Now I'm going to play it forward, and I think it picks up and shows it. There we go. Now, here's what I want you to look at. This right here is a bundle of fibers. It's a bundle of these things, but it's broken off, and that's how they set up. You see them? These are the bundles, and inside these bundles there's some vascularization, which means they're fed with blood. And this, you see it? It's one of those bundles, and I think this may be another one. But they're coming out of here, and these are those bands that I showed you in the tendon that was removed from the Achilles tendon. All right, here's something that's really cool. You see all this vapor coming off here? They have no clue why this has happened. That is cooking a piece of meat, and that is the vapor that would be given off, and if it was an oxygen-rich environment, you would be smelling the smoke of meat. And instead, it's giving off the same particles, but they're not combusting. And eventually they get on the spacesuits of the astronauts. Now, this is a representation of what I just showed you, the tendon ball. Now, Remember I showed you the one, what happens is this was as it develops, da, 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 da. Now, you end up with these straps. Those are the straps that we're looking at. The Achilles tendon doesn't just have one, it has like a bunch of them. Now, then you get a ball. Now, this is a different type of emplacement. The Achilles tendon is a complete round ball. Now, around that round ball of spikes is this red stuff, just because it's just the way it works. And these are highly mineralized spikes. And I have things here that have those spikes. Hold on. Here's one right here. Now, here's one with the spikes right in it I can show you. This is the spikes we're talking about. Those are plagioclases. And this is the round, you might be able to see, it's kind of hard for me to see, and it's probably going to be worse for you to see. But there's like a circular pattern here. And this, you see this here? There it is. You see that? That's an artery. Here's a vein. Veins always turn black. The arteries always either blow out or they have a reddish tinge to them. But they usually blow out because there's no clamps. The veins have clamps and they always stay filled. And they always turn black. Now, it comes down here, and this is the Slurpee that I'm talking about. I don't know if you can see it anymore. It used to be real red. But that's between each layer of the tendon, and they slide over it. Now this is that emplacement. Here it is. That's that plagioclase material. And that is what they're showing here. It's exactly the same thing. Alright, I'm just going to let this play. I did this a while ago, and I'm talking in it, and I may talk over it and stop it as it goes along. But what you're looking at there is a bundle of muscles. And the muscles turn into the gooey stuff that I just showed you and those bands of fibers. And here it goes. Look a little bit and think a little bit about this. You see this structure right here? It's sort of a circle with a hole in the center. You remember seeing those? That a circle with a hole in the center. These are some form of bundles or tendons. That's the bundles that I showed you before that was broken off. And those are those little holes in the center of those bundles. Now, I want you to look at this. Down here is Comet 67P. And I'm going to show you those bundles now.
I want
There
you
they
to
are
look
right
at
there.
those structures right there. You see those? I'm saying this is a tendon emplacement, and I'm saying that these are the same as the broken fibers that I just showed you on the specimen that I have here in my shop. Now, watch this. As I back up from this specimen, I'm going to back away from it, or I'm going to twist around from it because this is amazing what happens. Now, as I move up the fibers, all of a sudden, see them, they're like little, they look like boards, you know, and then all of a sudden,
That's
bang,
the
look
exact
at that.
same. Now, there is
Look
the
at that.
same stuff I showed you.
Now, this white stuff,
That's fiber.
see that? That's mineral. These things are extremely mineralized.
You see that?
And
That's
they
the
make these
tendon.
little
Tendon.
patterns, you know, they're almost like
Identical.
little crop circles and things. But anyway, as you go up further, up to tendon, you
There's
get this,
that gooey stuff.
this material. Let me see if I can focus this in a little better.
All right, I'm going to stop it right there and point out what I'm telling you happened in that ocean scene. This, you can't see it, but in there, these are like, each one of those is like one of those basalt columns that they say they are. Well, they're not. They're this. But they've fractured along those lines. Now, it hits that, this part going this way is down in the ocean. And heading out to that bundle, that ball that you saw, which is the Achilles tendon, that big ball, that's in the ocean floor. And that was where the guy was standing up, and that ball is stuck now deep in the mud. Now, this is what's coming straight up, and this was what was laying on top. And here, right at this point, it starts to turn into muscle. Now, I'll show you that. But this part here is that heavily invested red, gooey stuff that I talked about before and showed before. So here it goes. I'm gonna start.
See this
watch.
material here?
That's the gooey
See,
stuff.
everything's striated. And I have to block the light coming in from the side. Now, You see this reddish stuff? That's all starting to, there's some kind of blood investment here.
It's heavily
And
invested
this
with
is a
blood.
transition, and my stuff breaks at a certain spot, and every one of them, I always wondered why. And I see this exact same structure
That's where it breaks.
in the Giant's Causeway and a lot of places, and I'll show you that later. Now, you see these things? This is vascular stuff. That's blood. That's where the blood
Everything has to be fed with blood.
is
So
servicing these things. Now, I'm going to go a little further.
Now watch
and
this.
You're going to see what happens.
All of a sudden it's going to start.
It says,
You see
okay,
this?
what are we going to do?
now we're starting to get into muscles.
We have to make a transition into the muscle.
Look at
Here
now. There's
comes
the muscle
Isn't
fiber.
it something? And so you can have another sort of, and here comes the muscle fiber, the black
And
the
here's
white.
now still some minerals in your
But that's
muscle fiber. You see
Now,
this in all of
I'm
the
gonna home in on this a little
ones
bit.
that are
Yeah.
sticking up. There's now
you still
this.
see
Hold on one second. I'm just going to start.
Minerals.
All right, now. So we know that we had our muscle fibers coming up, then we had that gooey thing, and right here it breaks off, and then you go into your, I'm sorry, you had your tendons down the other end, the real striated ones, and then they abruptly stop at that gooey stuff, which is exactly what we saw in that ocean scene, and then they abruptly change into muscle above. Now, the muscle starts out with some more minerals in it, and it's still kind of crunchy at this point. It's still very tough, and then it starts to move into a more red gooey stuff,
and everything.
and that
But
comes
it takes
out
on
further.
this band of
And
fibers,
it'll stop. It'll
and they
start to
weave into
lose.
each other, and they still
See?
get service with blood here.
See, that's all blood
And it goes
investment.
off that way.
And it goes out, and you
off on
start
this
to, and they
side,
break
too.
here.
But this
It's
is the
exactly-
identical. You see?
All right, so here's what you got. Let's just take it from the end. At the other end is a ball that invests into a bone, usually. In the case of Achilles tendon, it wraps around a tuberosity, they call it. And then those first planks come out of there that are straight board-looking things, and then they abruptly stop at the gooey stuff. And then the gooey stuff abruptly stops and turns into the muscle fiber. And the transition from the muscle fiber is from heavily mineralized in the beginning, so that it has some, I'm not sure, but mineralized means it's got a lot of spiky sort of hard stuff in there. And my anatomist that does all the autopsies, I've sat through many autopsies, and he tells me, and I saw him do this, that the scalpels get dull. Scalpels get dull when he cuts through the tendons in a certain places, which you could see across those boards that it rip your scalpel to shreds. And he also said that, and I've seen him do this, he can, when you pull a regular red muscle, it has these fiber bands running through them, and in the beginning they're almost like guitar strings, and he played them, bring, bring, and that shows the mineralization which is in it. It didn't go to it went bring, bring. You could hear it ring. That's the sound of mineralization. So that's what's going on here. This is identical to what is in Comet 67P. There is no difference whatsoever. Okay, this is on astrowashington.edu. There's a black vein and there's a red artery, and the red artery comes down, and the reason it's red is because red is FeO3, it has 3 oxygens. It comes down, and then it sort of goes through these little tiny blood vessels to get to the other side. The oxygen gets used, it turns black. Totally understood. No mystery. Now, the reason this is all crystallized like this is this was probably a lung loaded with blood, which is heavily rich in metals, not just iron. There's other metals in there, and metals, and every kind of mineral has its own little kind of crystalline structure. When it comes through the atmosphere, it heats up, it smelts. The same thing that happens in a furnace. The organic volatile compounds, the stuff that's gooey, gets vaporized off, sublimated off because of the temperatures, and after 1500 degrees all that stuff is gone, or I think it's maybe 1500, 1800. This did not melt into a puddle. This smelted into I call it a festering smelt, where it just heated so hot that it blew off its gases, but it did not completely destroy its structure, because you can see that obviously. Now, The reason the crystals are here is because when they cut it in half, and then I believe it's probably etched with acid, that's what they usually do, and that what does is exposes the crystalline edges because it breaks the bonds. Acids crack bonds. And that's what they do fracking. Well, it's fracturing and cracking. They fracture the ground and they crack the bonds. Both of those things are destroying the earth. The earth is a living creature. That is a living creature at one time. Comet 67P was a living creature at one time. Mars was a living creature and is now dead. The earth is alive barely. That's the last statement I have to say on that. Okay, by the way, that first shot showing the ocean shot with the tendon fibers sticking up, that was, I believe, sent to me, or I saw it by Shane Hatta. Nice guy from Australia. He's always posting some really good stuff. But anyway, I believe that's where that came from. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm almost positive. Now, I just want to show you one thing. You saw the tendon balls and the red stuff that was all over them and the an anatomical joint. That's what that is right there. That's the tendon ball. This is from something. This may be from an incinerated ball that came through space. I don't know, or it just was in a fire. But this here is a strap. Well, that's one of those tendon straps. It comes down. That's the ball right there. It's totally, it's burnt off until that's what's left of it. Now, you see all the red stuff that was around it, that real red stuff? That's blood and gooey stuff, whatever the body makes there, that insulates this. And this stuff is, if you hit that against your body, it would tear you to shreds. I don't know how close you can see this, but boy, stuff is spiky as can be, and it's hard. And I believe it is SiO2, SiO4, and some of it. It's hard stuff. Let me put that way. 8, 9 on the Mohs scale. Okay, all the astronauts say the same thing. This is from csmonitor.com. And they say that well, you read it right there. What does it say? Space smells like seared steak. All right, I'm going to show you some other stuff. It's unbelievable. I can't tell you, I have no explanation for this other than that everything there is alive. And I can tell you everything that I can see is alive, and everything that I'm absolutely 100% certain of all that. Now, the sun, I don't know. The sun is the feeder of everything. The sun feeds us. I don't know. I just don't know. But all I know is if there is no sun, there is no life. If there is no, that is the electrons are our life. That's all I can tell you. Okay, here's a little mental floss for you. The time it rained flesh in Kentucky, and this is all extremely well documented. And this was in 1876, back when they actually had scientists that investigated things, and they looked into this. Now it would be laughed at, and the person that reported it would be maligned. Now, when you come down here further, they actually tasted this. They sent it to scientists. They did all kinds of things. Now, this guy did the best research on this. Dr. L.D. Casterbine, a chemist at Louisville College. He heated one of the samples over a Bunsen burner and noted that it had an odor distinctly like rancid mutton suet on warming. And after ignition, had the characteristic smell of burned animal tissue. Exactly what they say in this happened in space. And this thing came out of the space. Now, what else is he saying here? He also treated some pieces in chemical solution which helped expose muscle fibers and connective and fatty tissues. Exactly what I've been showing you. Now, as the specimen was not placed in alcohol, the odor was retained, and a number of meat specialists pronounced without hesitation that it was mutton. So now we know there's like sheep falling out of the sky. And God likes sheep, and he likes the smell of roasted meat. That's what it says in the Bible. And the Anunnaki, I am told, also like the smell of roasted meat. And I kind of do too. I'm not sure I like the smell. Anyway, I like steak myself. But so these guys said, yeah, this is lamb. And so he wrote, and since my examination, I have learned that others have arrived at the same conclusion as myself, some even asserting that the wool of the animal was distinctly seen. All right, so now we got meat coming out of space. We know we got comets built out of meat. We know we got asteroids built out of meat. We know the astronauts say that space is filled with the smell of meat. We know that, well, I say that the things I showed you are very conclusively characteristic of creatures' body parts. And I have them, and I've had 7 CAT scans, 3 DNA tests. It's all proven. And the ones that I have are giant humans, as well as other things. I got all kinds of stuff. And with everything, here's the deal. There was a giant flood, drowned everything. I think the flood was miles high. I think the creatures that were standing in the wet trying to save themselves ended up being anchored in the mud. They ended up rotting in the mud, in the water as it receded. And the tendinous material that was stuck into the mud, their ankles, which are the Achilles tendons, are sticking up. And then the red muscle that attaches to that deteriorates down to an exact point. Now, if you go all over Australia, I have videos all about this. There's spires of these things everywhere. And that is what happened, and they all drowned. And there's a giant elephant that is truly an elephant. You go look it up. There's a giant elephant, and I can tell you there's corpuscular stuff all over that thing. There's zero doubt in my mind that that thing was alive. Why are these things standing up? There's actually giants that are literally standing up, standing straight up. No question they're there. Standing straight up. One of them there with its arm broken off, and you can see the bone and everything that's inside his arm, the red muscle tissue around it. There's zero question of what it is. Why would that guy be fossilized standing up? There's only one way. He was suspended in water. And as the water came down, he was at that point somehow created in a stony structure by that time. So I have to assume that the water was up there for a while. I mean, because I'm seeing these creatures standing up. I have to assume they were up, floating in an upright position, only anchored in mud for a very, very long time. That's all I can assume, but that's just an assumption. So, somebody maybe look into this would be nice. That's my thought is.